Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. This is the Evolve monthly customer webinar for electrical users. This session is for everyone who uses Evolve Electrical to get a chance to work directly with our customer success and product teams. They're here to provide support, demonstrate features, go over some common questions, and they will be taking your questions live today. Here is a look at your dedicated customer success and product team who are on the call today, and they are here to answer your questions. So please use the Q&A tool in your Zoom toolbar to submit your questions, and we'll try to get to those as we go through. As a reminder, this webinar is being recorded and we will forward the recording to all registrants. You can also find all of our webinar recordings on the Evolve YouTube channel, so make sure you're following us over there too. All right, and with that, I am going to kick it over to Alex Siebert to get us started today.
Awesome. Thank you, Marina. All right. Well, I just kind of wanted to highlight some two resources that we've really been working on for the past couple of months. As you can see, we have QR codes for both of them, so that way you can sign up for them. Just a little snippet of what you can expect from each resource. So our weekly office hours is an opportunity for users to get some impromptu training. So we have it every Tuesday from 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. or 11 a.m. PT and 2 p.m. Eastern time. So you can pop in, ask some questions, and get some help with one of our techs that we have on that meeting. We also have the ability, so if there are no questions, we'll just kind of go through one of the tools kind of for an impromptu training, so that way you can get some more information on a tool that you might not be using. We also have Evolve University. So this is basically a system that you can sign up for. There are courses for all the Evolve tools within Evolve University. There's videos, help documents, and just a bunch of information for all those tools. So if you want to sign up for either, please follow these QR codes and fill out the forms for each. I'd also like to point out too that for the weekly office hours, we do house those in Evolve University as well. So let's say you miss a weekly office hour, you kind of want to see what was gone over during that time. You have the ability to go back and look at those in Evolve University. So if you guys have any questions about any of those things or are looking to sign up, please reach out to me, or you can also use these QR codes to fill out those forms. And that's it from me. I'll now pass it over to, I think Lucas is next, correct, Marina?
Jason, we've got
Jason.
you taken over.
All right, no worries. Thank you, Alex. Thank you, Marina. All right, so let's get started here. So I've got a couple things to go over with everybody today. The first one here is going to be the new hotfix release. The hotfix version 7.2.2 has now been released and is available for download. So I just kind of wanted to go through the patch notes really quick. This is a hotfix version, so there's no new features in here. What there is stability changes. So fixing any bugs that may have been reported by all of you and getting the product more stable. So in here, I won't go through every single one. I'll kind of highlight some of the big ones. Primarily, that's going to be those of you that have been getting an error when generating your spool sheets. That may be due to work sets being hidden by default when the tool generates a background view. So that has been fixed. That is in here. There is another one for the SmartBend tools. For that one, when you use SmartBend multi-trim, it may have set the level to -1. That has been fixed as well. And as you can see here, there's other fixes as well. One other thing I wanted to cover in here, there is a link in here to a few different resources. One of those is the known limitations / bugs. So if we have any bugs that we become aware of, we will post them on here with a description, a workaround if there's one available, and then the status and what version it's been fixed in. The one that I want to highlight on here is a known Revit defect that we recently became aware of, and that deals with Revit 2024. There's a bug in Revit 2024.1 and below, where Revit may throw an error related to extensible storage schema. If you have experienced this error, we have a link here to the Autodesk support article on resolving that issue. And if you have not started a project in Revit 2024 yet, we've got a link here that basically just says, make sure you're on the latest hotfix as of today, that's 2024.2, before upgrading or opening any 2024 projects. And you'll want to make sure that everybody is on that latest hotfix of Revit, or you may encounter this issue. All right, so that covers everything that I wanted to go through with the new release and the patch notes. So now we'll go into Revit with something that I wanted to share with you guys today, talking about filters inside of Revit, or more specifically, element filters. So we did cover this topic today. Well, not today. We did cover this topic more in depth on Tuesday this week during the office hours. So what I go over, we're going to kind of keep it a little bit brief and high level. However, if you'd like to learn more, we do have that recording available on Evolve University. So make sure to sign up for that, and make sure to sign up for our office hours, where we typically cover a topic just like what I'm about to go over. All right, so element filters in Revit are a very important part of even just native Revit. Element filters are the way that we can tell Revit or Evolve what elements we want to work with. So the two main places that you'll see element filters inside of Revit is with schedules and view filters. So if we open up any schedule in Revit and we go to filter, we'll see that there's a filter here. So whenever we're working in Revit, the schedule doesn't know what we want to schedule. The way we'll tell it is we'll choose a category, and we may choose all categories, or we may choose a specific one. But what we're doing with the filter is it's kind of like a funnel, right? So we're starting out with everything, and we're filtering down to the specific group of elements that we want to work with. So with schedules, we have filters here. So we can add lines here of where, we can set, hey, these things must be true to pass our filter, and then it will end up in our schedule. The other place that you'll commonly see those is going to be view filters. So everybody here hopefully is familiar with view filters, maybe more familiar with using them than creating them. So I want to go through, before we jump into the Evolve element filter tool, I just want to kind of show and explain a little bit about creating element filters with something that might be a little more familiar. All right, so I don't have any element or view filters in this project yet, but let's say that I want to color some things in my view. So a view filter I might make could be for coloring conduit fittings. So we're going to start simple here, and we're going to get a little more complex to talk about how filters work, and especially the filter rules. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to create a new filter, and we'll just call this my demo filter. And what we're going to do is we're going to start by filtering down the categories. So right now, this filter essentially covers, well, nothing, because we haven't selected any categories. But if we selected all of them, it would be filtering down to literally every element in the project. But we don't want to do that. So what I want to do is I want to color some stub 90s red for this example. And then we can get a little more in depth from there. So what I'll start with is conduit fittings. So we'll go with conduit fittings, and we're not going to make any rules just yet, so that we can kind of highlight how the filter changes depending on our rules that we set. So I'm going to turn on my demo filter here, and we're just going to color everything red that is a conduit fitting. All right, so if we look in here now, in our view, we can see that we have a lot of things that are red. So our stub 90s that we want to color here, Well, that's actually a kick. Come down here to a stub 90. So our stub 90s are red, but we also have a lot of other things that are red, which we don't necessarily want to be red in this case. So how would we filter down here to figure out how to make, just the stub 90s be red? The way we're going to do that is we're going to start looking at the parameters of this family, and we're going to ask ourselves, hey, what do all the stub 90s have in common? How can I filter down to just these? So if we look in here, we can see, we've got the family name. That's probably a pretty good candidate. Depending on how old your project is, you could have multiple versions of the stub 90 family in there. So that could work. One other place, and I think the one that we're going to use, is subcategory ID. So with all of the evolve families, you'll find these evolve parameters down here in the identity data or in the identity data of the type properties. These are great for filters and schedules. That's really what these were built for. So let's take advantage of that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say, hey, I want the subcategory ID to equal stub 90. So let's go ahead and do that and see how that changes our view here. So we'll go back into our visibility graphics overrides, and we're going to edit our filter. All right, so we can see here we've only got conduit fittings. So now let's add a rule here. So let's do the evolve description 2. And then we're going to set an operator. So filter rules in Revit and evolve work on kind of the same principle. It's parameter, operator, value. And when I say operator, that's just a fancy way to say equals or not equals, greater than, less than, those types of things. So we've got our parameter over here set to evolve description 2. And then I'm going to do equals, and then we're going to set the value here to stub 90. So now what we've said with this filter is the only things that will pass this filter is if all of these things in here are true. So is it a conduit fitting? Yes, my stub 90s are. And does the parameter evolve description 2 equal stub 90? Yes, it does, or it should. So let's go ahead and set that. All right, and now we can see that only our stub 90s are red now. But maybe we want to get a little more specific. Maybe we've written some things in the comments and we want to color it. We want to color stub 90s based on whether the comment is one thing or another. So in here in the comment, let's say this one is, needs review. And then maybe this one is design change. So something to this effect. So you could think of this as kind of like a status or just some value of a parameter that indicates something that you want to find or to notice. So let's go and let's set our filter up and see if we can get it to color just those ones, just these two, to be red. So we've got needs review and we've got design change. So I'm going to take a quick screenshot there to make our life easier creating our filter. So now I'm going to come into my filter and I need to get a little more advanced with my filter rules. So within the filter rules, we've got two things. We've got rules and we've got sets. A set is another grouping of this and or. So I'm going to add a set here. And then I'm going to add a couple rules. So now to set this up, what I want is if it's a stub 90 and the comment is equals needs review or design change, I want it to turn red. So as we know about our filter, everything must come out to be true. So when we look at these kind of more complex filter rules where we've nested rule sets, we start at the top and we say, okay, and so all of these things must be true. So this must be true, and then this set must be true. So within this set here, it's an or. So any of these may be true. So for this one to evaluate out as true, we're going to need the comments to equal needs review, or we need the comments to equal design change. So now as long as one of these are true, this will evaluate out to true. And as long as this is true, the whole thing will evaluate to true. Now, when it comes to making these filter rules and nesting these sets, I typically advise people not to go more than 2 sets deep. The logic starts to get really complex, and it's hard to kind of keep it all in our head and manage it and troubleshoot it and really get it working. So you can add more sets, but I typically try to keep it to 2 at a maximum. All right, so let's set that and let's see what we get. All right, awesome. So now we only have 2 stub 90s that are red, and they're red because they're stub 90s. Well, it's because they're conduit fittings. Their description 2 is equal to stub 90, and their comments, where is that, is needs review or design change. So in this way, we can construct filters, in this case for coloring, but as we'll see here in a second, the element filters are used throughout Evolve and can be used to really advance and take advantage of all the power that's there in the tools. So if we were to come to this other one, and this one was to become needs review, we can see that it's now colored red. All right, so let's jump in to the element filter in Evolve. And before we get to this, I just want to kind of go through and highlight where element filters are used in the product. So Location Manager has an element filter in there. That one's optional. So we don't have to label everything as being a part of that location. If we want to ignore things in a location, we'll use an element filter to do that. For autoplay sleeves, we'll actually use 2 element filters for that tool. We'll use one to filter out what conduits we're putting our sleeve on, and then also what type of host that we're going through, a wall or a floor. This allows you to place different types of sleeves for different conduits or different types of walls. Coming through, let's see, I think the next one over here is going to be down to the utilities. So the utilities are the big ones that take advantage of these. The workset manager is primarily driven on element filters. So which elements do you want to go on which workset? An element filter is how you tell the tool which elements you want to put on a certain workset. For reports, how do we know which elements we want to report on? Well, that takes advantage of data profiles. So for data profiles, you can think of that as kind of like a data pipeline. It pipes data from your model to other tools in Evolve. But which elements do you want to pipe data for? That's an element filter. That's how we tell that. Colorizer, an element filter to determine which elements we're coloring. Parameter sync, an element filter to determine which elements you want to copy parameter values from one parameter to another. Renumber, which elements do you want to number a specific way? Element filter really expands the power of this tool by letting you create different numbering schemas based on which elements you're numbering. So very powerful there. Find elements, again, that comes back to data profiles in the element filter there. And then that brings us down to element filter. Part encoder also takes advantage of element filters. All right, so over here, I've got my element filter open. And you see here, I've got a bunch of element filters in here already. You may have these in your project. If you don't and you would like to, these are our default element filters. They come with the install files, and I'll show you how to import those. To import those filters, go up to Import Filter, and then go to where you installed Evolve. Most likely that's going to be C Program Files, Evolve, Evolve Electrical for your year of Revit, and then into the Resources filter. And then this is the EV filter file that we would load, so the default selection filters. Once we've brought that in, we'll have all of these filters. So there's element filters in here to do various things. Some of them are very useful, and some of them are great examples of what you can do with element filters. So one that I want to show here, I won't go too deep into these for the sake of time, but what I want to show is, where is isolate? isolate by run ID. There it is. All right, so what this one does is if I run it and I click on a conduit, it's going to look at the run ID and it's going to isolate that run in my view. This is just one example of the things you can do. So let's take a look at this rule and see how it works. All right, so it might have seemed like magic that was going on there, but it's actually a very simple element filter. So if we look in our categories, we're filtering down to conduit fittings and conduits because that's what's going to make up our conduit run. And then in our rules, we've added a rule here with our parameter EE conduit run ID, and then our operator is equal to. And then one thing that really sets the element filters in Evolve apart from any that you'll see anywhere else is when you have the input type column. So typically it would be constant value. That would be the same as what you have with creating your Revit view filters. But we also have other options. You can prompt people for a value and they can type something in, or in this case, it's single element selection. So when I click one element, it's going to examine the other elements in my view, and it's going to see if they're conduit fittings or conduits, and then it's going to see if the conduit run ID equals the same conduit run ID of the element that I selected. So pretty powerful there. There's also other options in here. You can even do PowerShell in here. So if you think PowerShell could help get an element filter you want to make, feel free to reach out to us and we'll help you with that PowerShell. You can also set a default action for these. If you don't set a default action, you have all of these options available to you. So what element filter is extremely powerful for is turning on and off things in your working view. Typically now people will go in, they'll turn off categories from their graphic settings, or they'll create view filters. From here, we can do things very quickly. So not only can we hide or not hide, we can do temporary isolate. We can do show and hide. We can do halftone and transparent, as well as selecting. Selecting being very powerful here. One other thing that you can do in here that is extremely useful. Let's see. We go and show and hide. There's element filters in here for turning on and off links. So this one is a very simple one. So if we hide our links, we can hide those, and then we can show these links very quickly. What takes this tool to another level when it comes to efficiency and not having to click around as much and getting that carpal tunnel going is hotkeys. So you can hotkey all of these filters, and then you can trigger that hotkey through the element filter hotkeys button. This button can also be hotkeyed, and so you can string those hotkeys together to execute these element filters just from the press of a few buttons on your keyboard. And with that, that is what I wanted to share with everybody about element filters. Very, very powerful tool for use in Revit. All right, so with that, I'll kick it over to Lucas.
Thanks, Jason. All right, let me go ahead and share my screen here. Today we're going to be looking at a piece of content that I've been working on that'll be coming in our 7.4 release. This is has been requested by our customers for quite some time. It's been something that's been on our roadmap for a little while, and we have made some real headway with it. So if you're not familiar with these are Eaton's DuraBlock rooftop supports. What we've built out today and what I'm going to show you is these lines of products here, the DB, DB6, and DB10 series, as well as the DBDS series of products. In total, 34 catalog items we will now support with the 7.4 release in the coming months here. So let's take a look. We'll start with the first page that we saw there, and even further back, the raw base model. If you want to manually lay these out, put some strut on them, and kind of build this from scratch, this will be available to you. And as you'll see with all these products, we have some selection options within the constraints, and then under identity data, the Evolve description is automatically populating with that part description from the Eaton catalog. Moving on to the DB series here, real simple family. If we look back at the catalog, let me pull that back up. If we look back at the catalog, we see that there's 6 items here, and the only thing that's really changing about them is the length. And so that's what we've given you here, the ability to select a length for us, and the part will automatically update its description as you go through, as you make your selection. So if I choose this 30.8 length model, we see that that's automatically updated to our DB30. Something I've included with this release of content, and you'll start to see this in some of our other content as well, is some error handling, some selection handling. And what I mean by that is if you accidentally select 2 of these items, one, you're going to see up in the overall length here that there's some kind of error reported. In this case, multiple lengths are selected. If you don't select anything, you're going to get an error of no length selected. Basically, we need you to make some kind of cognitive decision about what product you want to be selected here. There will also be a graphical colorizing through our colorizer rules. Any family that finds an error will automatically get turned to red, as you see here. Once you make a selection, that error will go away in the message center, and you'll see that it models appropriately as expected without the coloring. All right, so we've got 6 lines from the DB series. If we move on to DB6, there is no 4.8 available, but all the others are here. Same concept. There's just 5 lengths this time, and you're just selecting through to whichever length you want to use, and then the description is automatically updating. And then DB10, that's a little more unique. It only ever has these 2 bases, but in this case, we're changing the length. Same concept. We're changing as we change the length, our model updates, and we see our evolved description updating. And then again, that error handling, same thing is going to happen if we make a poor selection on this product. All right, so that's that first page of rooftop supports. Let's look at the DBDS series. Actually, before I do that, we'll just take a quick look at 3D. This is what those guys will end up looking like in your models. Pretty simple, straightforward, hopefully, and light. It's a big thing for us. We're trying to make sure that these families are light and easy to use. All right, so let's take a look at the DBDS. So similar concept here. The base product is very straightforward. There's 16 variations, and all that's changing is their width and height. And so that's what I've modeled out here, one permutation of each of these. And similar to the models we looked at prior to this, we select on one, we have a couple decisions to make. In this case, we have to decide what height we want and what width we want. When we do that in Evolve Description, again, we'll automatically generate the Eaton catalog number for you. And as you make changes to your selections, that Evolve Description will update. One thing I'll point out as well, in this case, the error handling not only is going to support, the error handling is supporting both of these parameters, in that if one of these is not selected, the Evolve Description is not going to be able to be generated, and you're going to see a graphical issue. It's going to turn red. And it's the same concept. If you have multiple selected, but you only have one selected on the other, nope, that's not a valid selection. It's going to tell you what's wrong with it. You're going to need to fix it before this thing can be modeled properly. There is one other variable to this particular product, and we can actually see that within their catalog here in this brochure. There's a minimum and maximum height for the cross strut that's here, and we've built that in as well. So as you go through and make your selections, the cross strut height maximum will adjust. The minimum per that catalog is always going to be the same, but the maximum, if we look through across the different heights here, we'll see that that maximum is changing. If we were to change our cross strut height to be something that is above that maximum or below the minimum, we will again get some kind of error telling us, hey, specified cross strut height is above the maximum. The maximum will be used, but it's going to throw an error here until you get that fixed. And you'll see that that error message. This is something I want to use more and more. I know this is something new that we're putting out there, but we're trying to give you this immediate feedback based on your selection. And if we were to fix that, immediately goes and reports, oh, everything is fine. And the specified cross strut height will be used. All right, let's take a look at this in 3D real quick, just so we can see what these look like. Again, real straightforward, lightweight. For just a little more detail, you'll notice that these are nested. These are nested families within here, but they're not shared. So the parts and pieces of these for these families will not show up in a bill of materials. Instead, in your bill of materials, this single item, this rooftop support with this catalog number, is going to show up as a single line item with a unit measure of each. Okay, are there any questions? Okay, I see one question so far. Do you have to manually load this family, or does it auto load the family browser? When we release this, it will be part of the Evolve family browser. So you will be able to load it in. The way I'm leaning on doing this is that within the family browser, you're going to be selecting whether you're pulling in a DB series, DB6, DB10, or a DBDS. So we're going to add 4 items to the family browser. And then once you load that family in, you'll be able to change the instance parameters to actually get to the exact catalog item that you want. Hopefully that answers your question there. Any other questions on these before I move on to the assembly variants? Okay. So we recognize that there might be some reasons why you wouldn't want to purchase these products. Maybe it's cheaper for you to build in your shop. Maybe you don't want to use the size strut that comes with this. You want to customize it a little bit. Maybe you want a longer support. Maybe you want more bases in there. These ones only come with 2. Maybe you want a custom assembly for whatever reason. So we've built out 2 families to support that initiative. Let's pull that up. So the first one is basically for that first page, real straightforward. You're going to be specifying some kind of length, unless you only have a single base here. If you have a single base, the length is going to be ignored. It's just going to be as if you bought that single part. But the nice thing about this is, instead of being locked in to the size strut that comes with those purchased products, you can customize this now. We offer our standard strut depths here, so you can swap these out. Again, we're pushing in some error handling here. If you don't have anything selected, it's going to say something, and vice versa. If you have multiple selected, it's going to throw an error. But really cool feature. Really cool family, real simple to use. I hope you can change the base model to be the smaller variant, or you can have the larger variant, and then you can have up to 5 bases here. We debated this a little bit internally. We decided, we had to draw the line somewhere with this because of the next step that I'm going to look at here. We decided to, at the very least, match what is offered by Eaton, and that is support for up to 5 bases. But the neat thing about this family is you can have 5 bases and make this thing however long you want, right? And notice when I did that, those bases automatically spaced out equally. That's very much by design right here. However, we do have the ability to offset each and every one of these bases either left or right. I won't get into the details of some of the neat ways you can do that. That'll be in a video that I put out when this comes to release. But you can see here, these 2 bases are virtually identical from a base construction standpoint, but on this roof, we had some kind of obstruction here. To that end, we were able to take the right edge of the 3rd base and offset it to the left a little bit, and it allows us to avoid that obstruction. Let's see what else I want to say here. Oh, one other thing, as you make your selections, as opposed to the products that we looked at previous, the actual buy products, those ones have a built-in formula that's pulling out the catalog number. In this case, we're using a parameter sync rule that we've created to generate a description that describes what this part actually is. In this case, it's a 60-inch 3 DVP base support with the Galv 1 5/8 strut. So as you make changes, if we make this quantity of 4, that part description has automatically updated. We change the length of it again. Ooh, right there. I didn't bring this up earlier. We have a minimum length in here as well. And this is based on your number of bases that you've selected and what size those bases are. In this case, in order to have 4 bases, you need to be at least 3'2" and change. So let's make this 3'6". Error caught us. That's nice. And we're back in action. We see that our evolved description here has updated to reflect that new length and base quantity. Before I move on to the next assembly, are there any questions on functionality for that guy there? All right, cool. Let's take a look at the rack. This one I'm really excited about. It mimics how our hangers are built when it comes to the actual construction of this thing. I'll just work down the list here. The overall size is, we're not inputting that in this case. Instead, we're going to be inputting the strut lengths, but we do report what those overall lengths, widths, and heights are going to be. Our thought process here, you don't want to be cutting something that's 3'7" and 5/8. Let's decide on some hard numbers. So you can manually input those numbers here, automatically adjust the size of this thing. We'll just change 1, for example. This thing needs to be a little bit longer, 4 feet, and there it goes. As we work our way down, similar to the last assembly, we can swap out, decide which base we want. In this case, the offsets are just going to be going front and back. Maybe, again, there's some kind of obstruction on the front or back. We can move the bases either front, forward, or backward as necessary. Next up, and I'm going to switch to 3D for this just so we can see these things a little bit more in action here. The base strut depth, that's going to be these strut on the bottom here. We can, again, swap these out for whatever strut we want them to be. We're not locked into anything. So we can swap these to maybe we need 1 5/8" on this. And that'll automatically adjust our height and update our assembly. As we move forward, we're going to look at the actual tiers. So unlike that purchase item from Eaton, we are actually supporting up to 3 tiers of strut here. By default, the first one is turned on. Very similar options if you're familiar with our trapeze families. Again, we can change the various depths of the strut here. We can change the offset. This is going to be from ground to the top of that strut. So if you wanted to move that up, you could. And then there are also options to either invert the strut. You should see that change. Or turn it into a back-to-back. And again, we've added in this new immediate feedback. What is your current selection? In this case, we've got 1 5/8" back-to-back strut selected. Sorry about that. All right. You can see here I've already got some already have some pre-modeled with additional tiers. All I needed to do that was come into this checkbox, check the add tier 2, and it adds that strut on. Same thing for the tier 3. Come to here, add tier 3, check that box. 3rd tier is going to be added, and then all the same options for each of those strut supports. We don't want time here. Okay. The evolved description is getting updated for each of these based on the assembly. So in this case, this one is a 3-tier of this rough overall size with strut and hardware described as well. This one is going to show as 2-tier. All right. The other thing we're including with this is very similar to our prefab in-wall rough and our trapeze, is a series of schedules. The first one is going to be our assembly schedule, and this is going to list out all of your unique assemblies for all your unique DuraBlock assemblies. And it'll count them up for you and tell you, what do you actually have modeled here. You'll notice that I've actually gone in and sorted this a little bit differently today. What I also added in here was a description 2 change. It's not like this anymore, but this one previously, before I made those changes, was basically the same variant as the 1A, but we had that one piece of that one base, that third base that we had to move inward. It's a slightly different assembly, slightly different build. I don't have it ready for today, but what we will have in here as well is a support for our part encoder, in that you'll be able to generate a unique part code for each of these assemblies, not just based on that evolved description, but on any of the parameters. If any of those parameters changes, that unique part code will get generated. So this will be a good example of when you might want to do that. Our next schedule, similar to our other groups, is just going to be a bill of materials. What are all the parts and pieces that you need to actually build these assemblies? And then because we broke out these assemblies with some description 2 indicators here, we can now sort these by bill of materials by assembly as well. So that same list, but now it's broken up. Hey, for DB ASM4, you're going to need all these parts and pieces. Really straightforward. And then finally, a cut list as well for all those assemblies. You know, what strut do you actually need to have cut for these assemblies to get built? Let's see. I think that covers it all. Like I said, a couple of parameter sync rules to support some of this. Part encoder will be coming as well. Look for this all to be coming in the 7.4 release in the next few months here. If you are interested in testing any of these families, we would love to get your feedback. I'd be happy to share these out with you. Just keep in mind they are in beta. There will be some metadata in them that indicates they are beta. And things may break. Just yesterday, I fixed an issue with one of them. So they are still going through some testing, but they're in a spot where I would love to get them in the hands of some of our customers and get some feedback and see what you think, and see what needs to be changed. I'll put my email into the chat when I'm done talking here, and just reach out to me. Tell me you want to test these out, and we'll be in touch. Before I hand this off to Adam, are there any questions on these on the families I showed today? All right, very cool. Hand it over to you, Adam.
Thanks. And you'll be at MEP Force in a couple weeks.
Yeah, so that too. We're those of you that don't know, I think Marina will probably link some of the information before this session is over. We're hitting the road for MEP Force this year. We're heading to a handful of different locations. Our next one is in Austin, Texas. I will be in attendance at this and hopefully all future MEP Force events. Keep scrolling down there. I want to see my session. Yeah, so a collaborative roundtable. It's for the mechanical guys, but if you want to poke your head into as electrical, by all means, I will be facilitating a roundtable discussion regarding content, just getting feedback. We want to hear from you. We want to know what we need to build and how we need to build it. So by all means, find me. If you don't catch me at the roundtable, find me afterwards and talk my ear off there. All right, that's it for me.
Thanks. So a couple of things that I wanted to talk about to wrap it up here. We will be pushing out an update to Foresight at the end of this week. It'll be Friday night. Most of the things coming into the website have to deal with shops. I want to talk about that in a second, what that is. Just a couple of housekeeping things for anybody who is an administrator of Evolve licenses. There's a couple things coming. Basically, let me just jump to an example. From the admin page here where you have all your users listed, there'll be a filter here so you can add filter down to say who has a specific type of license or maybe who has no license at all. This show only deleted members is updated. I think previously it was including deleted members. So this just isolates it to deleted members. A couple of minor things there. The other thing to note that within the message center, there will be a mark all as read option. If you notice, we try not to blast people or spam anybody with in-app notifications, but we can send those direct to Revit. A lot of times typically we're only going to do that with issues or updates and things like that. you'll notice they'll always pop up if you don't read the messages from the website. So if you get that pop up, previously you'd have to come here and click through all of these to mark them as read. This will just be a quick button, quality of life thing. Mark them all as read, then you won't get them in Revit anymore. So on the shop topic, the other things that are coming, this beginning of this year, we launched, our first application, shop product, to the website. We launched that, went live beginning of the year. It was really focused on, a very simplistic workflow, basically generating what we call a work request, basically a ticket that's going to be tracked through to the shop, prefab shop, of what items you want to order. These are typically spools or packages and whatnot. And the process is basically to be able to generate this work request, approve it, execute the work in the shop, and then obviously wrap it up and complete it. So it's a very simple process. We've been ongoing developing this throughout the year, so I'm going to show a couple of things on that. One of the changes we made at around July, we removed a lot of that integration with Revit out. That integration will be launched the beginning of next year at some point. It'll be implemented totally different than it was, a lot better for the end users. So that's coming. Basically, what we have today is, like I said, that workflow from typically it's field VDC generating spools, requesting work, and they're basically submitting these things as tickets, and then the shop has a process for ordering or approving, prioritizing, and executing the work. Also next year, we're going to be working on a shipping and receiving function that really wraps up the whole workflow. And like I mentioned, the next item on the list is being able to connect to Revit and send those things direct. So just a couple of little quick screenshots of kind of what's in place. Here we'll go to a project. And I'm not going to really demo this, but I just want to kind of show what's there. Basically, if you have a project, you can create, these are what we would call a work request. Essentially, they're just a ticket. Inside this ticket is going to be some items that you create. You have this submission process, which kicks it over to the shop user. The shop user would be able to see a bunch of work requests coming in from all different projects. They can basically click in this, approve it, reject it, what have you. And then when it's in shop, now it's the whole management of this work, right? So you have this idea of work orders, which is essentially an approved work request. You can see it in a Kanban view by status. You see a calendar view when this thing is needs to be shipped. You can even drive down into work cells themselves and see kind of like from a shop floor perspective, what's going on, what are the activities that are happening on the shop, and what's the status of them. And you can go as far down as the individual work cells and open one of those up. This is where you have access to tasks and the viewer and things like that. So that's kind of what's in place. Again, I'm not trying to demo really the product, but I just want to show progress in what we've done today. If this is something that you're interested in, you want more information, reach out to us. Obviously, we're always willing and able to get into more depth here. But that's where I really wanted to leave it with that. And I guess we'll see if anybody has any questions. Otherwise, we can wrap it up.
Marina, you might be muted.
Absolutely was. Thank you, Jason. So I wanted to give just one more shout out for the MEP Force Roadshow. As some of you may know, we do this in the past. We've done this conference annually, and we wanted to make it easier for more of contractors to come to this event, network, experience the educational opportunities. And of course, we always try to have some fun. So the next event will be December 13th in Austin at Topgolf, sponsored by Evolve and Autodesk. It is sure to be a good time. Link is in the chat if you want to register. In January, we'll be going to Milwaukee, and keep your eyes peeled for more events and dates that will be announced in the new year. All right, I don't see any more questions coming in. So with that, I want to say thank you everyone for attending today. I hope that you found the information valuable. Please make sure to follow us on social media to keep up with all of our upcoming webinars and educational resources. As a reminder, this webinar has been recorded, and we will send out the recording in an email to all registrants. Thanks again to everyone, and have a great day.